So if anyone's been paying attention to the internet recently, you might know we just had E3, and it just so happens that they announced a new Star Wars game. And of course, I'm sure you immediately thought to yourself, I wonder what Michael thinks of this game. Well, here you go. This is what I think about it. Are you happy? Now, I'm going to be talking about the things I love about it, some things I'm not too sure about, and of course, the most important thing, Dismemberment. Are we going to be playing with a lightsaber that slices through stormtroopers like a hot knife through butter, or are we going to be playing with a baseball bat and just hit them a bunch of times until they fall over? Who knows, but that's what we're here to figure out. Watch until the end of the video because that's where we're going to talk about the juicy stuff. And if you're new here and like the video, subscribe and come say hi in the comments. I want to know what you guys think of the game and the whole issue with Dismemberment and everything. I mean, they dropped the ball pretty hard at the first E3 it was announced, and even this year's announcement was pretty sucky. It seems like they're always so underprepared for these things. I mean, last year when they announced it at E3, yeah, I said that with quotation marks, you heard me right. There was no gameplay, no trailer, and no concept art. It was the absolute bare minimum for a game's announcement, and it hurt to watch. In fact, I don't think I even heard about the game until a year later when they showed the trailer at Star Wars Celebration, which even parts of that looked pretty unfinished. Now, despite EA completely butchering the Star Wars license for games up until now, I was still overwhelmed with excitement when I saw the trailer and the gameplay for the first time. But once the initial rush went away, I was left with a lot of questions and concerns about the game. And also, what's with the stormtroopers not getting sliced in half when the lightsaber clearly cuts right through them? There's a lot of things it seems they've done right with this game so far, quite a few things I'm concerned about or have questions on, and then there's the issue of Dismemberment. Shouldn't a lightsaber do what a lightsaber is supposed to do and chop those bad guys right up? So that's what the video will be broken into. The good, the bad, and the Dismemberment. Now, before we pick apart the gameplay and all the things in question, we're going to start with all the good things that we can appreciate about the game. Now, when I first saw the trailer and even the gameplay, I was just frozen in my seat, petrified with excitement. Still, to this day, when I see something Star Wars for the first time, I stop in my tracks and become giddy like a little schoolgirl. Guilty as charged. Once that wave passes over and I start thinking a little more rationally again, I notice that unlike some of the other games in the past that we're not going to mention, cough, cough, Battlefront 2, cough, excuse me, this game is going to do quite a few things right. Like, for one, there's no microtransactions in the game. Thank goodness. One less way for EA to get money out of our pockets. So nice to know they won't be abusing the system there. And this is going to be a solely single-player game focused on story, unlike the last two Battlefronts, which were made basically for multiplayer, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just really excited to get a new Star Wars story to follow. It looks like it ties really well into the universe with Saw Gerrera and Kashyyyk and the KX security droids, which, holy cow, I freaked out when I saw them in the gameplay. They look so cool. The environment looks amazing, and I can't wait to explore every inch of these amazing worlds. And Cal's droid, BD-1, looks adorable. I'm really excited to get to know him. Gameplay wise, they're designing the levels Metroidvania style, so once you beat a level of the story, you'll continue on and unlock new abilities so that you can come back to those levels you beat and access areas that you couldn't get to before. This should give the game a large amount of replayability value through exploration and side quests on your second or third run of these levels. And what I'm really excited for is how big of a focus this game seems to have on the creative and strategic use of force powers. Now, unlike Force Unleashed 2, this game will be rationing out the force you use rather than going God mode and disintegrating every baddie within a 20-meter radius. Cal has the ability to slow time with the Force, kinda like Quantum Break, where you could just pause everyone's bullets midair and run away from them. The first time we've ever seen a Force user use this power was in Force Awakens when Kylo stops Poe's blaster bolt in midair, and I gotta admit, first time seeing this, I got goosebumps immediately and just about fell out of my seat. It's such a cool concept and neat interpretation of using the Force compared to the previous 6 movies, and it just feels like such a powerful ability that only very strong Sith or Jedi should have. We saw Vader use it on some clones in Star Wars Theory's Vader film, which was incredible, and you could really feel the power there. But from what we've heard about the game so far, it doesn't seem like Cal has gone through a bunch of training yet, or is anywhere near as powerful as Ren or Vader. And as cool as it'll be to have this ability in the game, which I'm really excited to play with, having such a young, untrained, force-sensitive kid use this kinda takes some of the gravity away from when Kylo used it. But when he slowed that blaster bolt down and he force-pulled the stormtrooper in front of his own shot, my jaw dropped. I think it'll be really fun to play with this aside from everything, and I can't wait to try it out. And another small detail I noticed while watching the gameplay is that the stormtrooper bodies don't disappear once you've killed them. In the Force Unleashed games, once you kill your enemies, the bodies would just kind of disappear, which broke away from the immersion quite a bit. I know Force Unleashed is much more populated with enemies and the bodies would pile up pretty fast, but I'm still glad to see this little details in there. And similar to what they did with Battlefront 2 before release, with the book Inferno Squad, where it kind of told the story of what happened before the campaign you play, they'll be releasing a 5-part comic series that will start to tell Cal's story before we play the game. That's cool too, but enough with the good stuff. We covered a lot of the game's strong points, and now we're on to the bad. Right off the bat, the first red flag we have is the game's length. In every single panel they've had, they dance around the question like they're about to get force choked by Vader if they say anything wrong. They've even confirmed they know exactly how long the game is, and yet they refuse to tell us. And the community has not been quiet about this. They've shown that they're concerned, and we've just been given the answer that the game is lengthy. Yes, again with the quotation marks, sorry, you wouldn't think that'd be their answer, but it has been. For every interview. And remember how we just praised the Metroidvania level style a few seconds ago, where you could go back to replay levels with new abilities to discover new things? Yeah, well, I'm worried that they're including any replayability the game has to offer into the initial length of the gameplay, which should not be the case. I don't want to play a 4-hour game and then realize there's 20 extra hours worth of repetitive side missions that don't add anything to the story. I want to see a solid 15-hour campaign with another 15 to 20 hours worth of additional quests that actually add stuff to the story. And for some reason, I just don't feel like that's going to happen. EA's shown us too many times in the past how often they're out to make a quick buck. I mean, that's what they're known for. LucasArts did a great job making Force Unleashed 2. I love that game. But if you rush through it, you could beat the game in 4 hours. It was fun, but just too short-lived. I want them to go all in for the story for this game. It has so much potential. And unlike Force Unleashed, they've already stated they're not going to be making any DLC for this game, which gives us no hope for redemption if the game is too short on release. I don't know why they wouldn't leave that unanswered or to be determined later down the road, but I was a little sad when I first heard this. If the base game isn't long enough or doesn't go well with the players, DLC is their last chance of redemption, and they've already just thrown it out the window. I mean, the title Star Wars Jedi with the colon after it infers there could be a sequel made, so it's possible they just want to save any more story expansion for Star Wars Jedi 2 in a few years. But moving on from the length of the game and taking a step back to look at the game as a whole, I can see why people were underwhelmed. It's sad to say it, but if you take away the Star Wars element, no one would bat an eye at this game. It'd just be another run-of-the-mill average third-person adventure game. It hasn't shown us any crazy wow factors that make it stand out. Since the first gameplay footage was released, all anyone can do is compare it to other games they've played that it looks similar to. Titanfall with the wall running, Uncharted with the vine swinging, Dark Souls with the lock-on combat, and to be fair, it does look like a part of each of these games more than it does its own game. And apparently, it wasn't even a Star Wars game to begin with. I found this article where they said they were just making a third-person adventure game until someone at EA saw it and had the idea to put a Star Wars skin on it. This literally confirms what we were just talking about. If it didn't have the Star Wars element, what would be the selling point for this game? Right now, they're saying it's thoughtful combat, which, to be used as the selling point, looks way too underdeveloped and slow and clunky. I was really hoping the combat would look better, but apparently a few of EA's game changers had the chance to play it at E3, and to my surprise, there were almost no complaints out of everyone who played it. Apparently it plays much better than it looks, which is a huge relief. It sounded like the developers were overhyping it in the panels to try to get us excited about it, but it just didn't look as good as they were selling it to be. I'm just really happy we can dismiss this one for the moment and move on to my next issue surrounding the game. Now, like we've seen many times in the past, games are made to look as good as possible when they're showcased at these events to catch as many eyes as possible and look like this breathtaking world you'll get to be a part of and live in. And then on release, you get the game, and not only does it look like a potato compared to the reveal, it also feels like you're playing a completely different game than you saw advertised. They'll completely leave out some elements, and along with the world looking like a 2D indie game, they somehow managed to crush all excitement you felt when you first saw this amazing game. And I can't help but worry that Fallen Order is going to raise our hopes up with this Star Wars excitement and then dropkick us like a Jawa in Force Unleashed. I'm worried that when the game comes out, it'll look nothing like what we've been shown. I mean, the graphics aren't the greatest in the gameplay, but I'm okay with them. I don't want to play a potato when it comes out. And I know we're absolutely spoiled with the graphics for Battlefront 2, but still, look at Force Unleashed 2's cutscenes. These graphics were so far ahead of their time, and I didn't care that the gameplay didn't look as good as the cutscenes. It still looked great in its own way, and I just want Fallen Order to do the same. Some scenes in the trailer look incredible, and others look like they were thrown together with some rough lighting to make the trailer's release deadline. If we get the same gameplay graphics on release, and the cutscenes are rendered the same way as the first part of the trailer, I'd be happy. I'd say that's what I'm hoping for graphics wise. And the last little concern before we get to Dismemberment is how slow the blaster bolts move. I mean, it looks like they're shooting in slow motion before Cal even uses the force to stop him in place. Now, I get that it needs to be digestible for the player to be able to mentally process and react to, but holy cow, it looks like it's on little kid mode. I really hope that in some of the harder difficulties, the blaster bolts move faster and the enemies strike faster and not just do more damage. This will make the challenge more fun and feel more rewarding to master. But I don't know. I feel like we need a good Star Wars game, and if they fix a few things, it has the potential to be really good. Which leads us to the last point and one of our biggest overall concerns with this game: Dismemberment. Now, cutting off arms and legs in Star Wars is nothing new. In fact, it takes us back all the way to where it began in A New Hope. A bloody arm was cut off on screen and the film still received a PG rating. Yes, it was 1977, but still, that was the first time we saw a lightsaber in action and realized how deadly it truly was. This old man barely gave it a swing and it chopped this guy's arm clean off. This is the coolest weapon in all of history. Then cut to 2019, and when we swing a lightsaber, it feels a lot less awesome and a lot more like a baseball bat. Why won't games let us chop up enemies like a lightsaber's supposed to? Now, there's a few excuses for this, and they all revolve around either money or more money. Whether it's with movies or games, a lightsaber has become less deadly in the last few years because if there's human dismemberment, the rating will go up, which in turn will decrease the target audience. Making stuff more violent means less kids and families pay Disney money to watch it. Now, this argument isn't asking for more gruesome violence. No, not at all. When a lightsaber cuts a limb off, it's so hot that it'll cauterize the wound before you can see a bunch of blood. We just want to see a lightsaber do what we know it will do when it makes contact with a bad guy. It doesn't need to be excessive or anything, just every once in a while to give us that immersion of a lightsaber being as powerful as it really is. And the big question here is, will there be dismemberment in Jedi Fallen Order? Now, if you think the devs would flat out answer a burning question from the community like that, well, you're not entirely wrong, but basically, yeah. I don't think they expected so many people asking about this, and they weren't prepared to properly respond, so all the answers are wishy-washy. Some say yes, some say no, and some say maybe. Great. Thanks for the transparency, EA. Honestly, this is something we're going to have to figure out on our own. If we look closely at the gameplay, it looks as if the lightsaber is leaving marks on the stormtroopers for where it should be cutting them in half. So this brings us to the question of, are they saving the dismemberment for the actual game and they just thought it was too gruesome to show in the demo at E3, or that it would scare parents away from buying it for their kids? I mean, I highly doubt many parents would get scared away by that. Most kids have played hundreds of hours of GTA by now, and there's far more violence and not kid-appropriate things in there than a lightsaber cutting a stormtrooper's head off. What I'm saying is that it looks like the game has been built to include dismemberment, that the character models were made with points that would allow the player to chop them off, but what we saw was not dismemberment. We saw a spider getting chopped up, and that's it. All the stormtroopers took the lightsaber like a bat to the head. Now, the devs have made it very clear that they are in fact making a teen-rated game. Everything they put into the game must result in that rating and nothing more. Thanks a lot, Disney. Now, where is the line? Why can we dismember stormtroopers in Force Unleashed 2 and Jedi Knight, which are both teen-rated games, and we can't have it in Fallen Order? Well, for one, ESRB is not what it was back in the day. After the Video Games Cause Violence Party spoke up, they were forced to be much more strict about their ratings than they were back in 1995. But you say, Michael, look at what ESRB classifies as a teen game. It may contain violence, suggestive themes, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling, and/or infrequent use of strong language. And if we go down here under violence, it says that includes scenes involving aggressive conflict and may contain bloodless dismemberment. Bingo! We already established you don't see blood when a lightsaber cuts up a stormtrooper, so we're in the clear. We can put dismemberment in the game and it'll be rated teen. Well, that sure sounds nice in theory, but I'm pretty sure Bloodless Dismemberment by ESRB is referring to non-humanoid things as in bugs, robots, and other stuff that doesn't have human blood in it. If we look at what makes a game M-rated, we see it may contain intense violence, blood and gore, sexual content, and strong language. And their definition of blood and gore is the depictions of blood or the mutilation of body parts. Okay, well, there's no blood, but we're definitely mutilating body parts, and this is why Dismemberment should result in an M rating, which Disney would not be happy with. The only reason Force Unleashed 2 got passed with a teen rating is because the devs convinced ESRB that the stormtroopers were just robots, which I can't believe worked, but I'm really thankful it did. Now, if this game doesn't have Dismemberment, it will by no means ruin the entire game. It sure would be nice to have though. It's just weird to see a lightsaber slice through a guy's torso and it only do 50 damage. That's not nearly as fun or appealing as being able to slice up some stormtroopers like you know a real lightsaber would. And I'm fine if they want to just make it optional. If they're using the excuse of it being too violent for the kids, by all means, make it optional to turn on and off. But I just have a feeling we're not going to be seeing that either, because if the game is rated M, the sales will slightly be less, and we all know that when Disney and EA team up, it's been for a quick buck in the past, and there's no reason that would change now. I don't know. I think we've been really needing a great new Star Wars game that gives us a new story to follow and delivers the action very true to Star Wars, but hopefully this game won't disappoint too badly. If you made it to the end of the video, wow, thank you for listening to me rant there for a bit. I've been wanting to talk to someone about this, and I thought I'd just share it with you guys. I appreciate you watching, but I'm also curious to hear what you guys think about this game so far. Please feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments. I'll be looking through them all a bit later. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and drop kick that like button. And until next time, I will see you in the comments section. Peace.
Yeah!
Yeah! They're making a Star Wars game!
Yeah!
Yeah! Please, keep it going. They're making a Star Wars game! Yeah!